Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming this evening. My name is Reverend Rebecca Bryan, and I am the minister here at the First Religious Society. We're so glad to welcome you here and to all of our candidates this evening. I was laughing. We learn things every day. I've never had our microphones joined in this way, so I was just getting a lesson about that. But it reminds me of how important community is, how important it is that we learn, that we never think we know everything, and that we allow others to help us open our minds. It's our honor to be able to host this event this evening. When Reverend Laurel Gray and I found out that this wasn't happening somewhere else this year, it was an immediate, well, that's not democracy in action. And so thank you so much to Eben and to the Townie and to all of our candidates for being here this evening and allowing us to really truly be a city together. This building was built in 1801. The church itself, the congregation, is 300 years old this year. Our original building until 1801 was down on Market Square. And the reason I'm bringing that to our attention is that building, and this in its very first years, was the town hall. It was the place people came for exactly this kind of discourse. So it's apropos that we're here together this evening. The restrooms, if you need them, are out through the vestibule, down the stairs to the right. Both of our ushers could show you. We also have a lift down that will take you there if that's your preferred way of accessing the restroom. So thank you so much for being here this evening, and let's learn together.
Thanks, Rebecca. As she said, I'm Eben Diskin. I'll be your moderator. I'm the editor of the Townie, and I want to thank all of our candidates for being here tonight, as well as all you guys. We are up against Sunday night football, so you guys made the right choice. Thanks for coming. And I want to introduce from left to right, we have Ed Cameron, Rani Eng, Sarah Hall, Ben Harman, Afroz Khan, Heather Shand, and Mark Wright. Thanks again for being here. And the candidates have been given the rules in advance, but I'm going to go over it again here for all of you. The candidates will get 1 minute each for an opening statement. I'll be asking a series of questions which have not been shared with the candidates in advance. They'll each get 1 minute to answer, and we're not doing traditional rebuttals for every question because we have a lot of candidates on the stage and a lot of questions to get through, and we want to get through as many as possible. But if another candidate is referenced directly in an answer, that candidate will get 45 seconds to respond. At the end of my questions, there'll be an audience Q&A, same response format as before. So as the debate is going on, be thinking about questions that you might want to ask that haven't been previously addressed in the debate. And also as a reminder for everyone, there are 5 open at-large city council seats and 7 candidates on the stage. So just do the math. So something to keep in mind as you listen tonight and process their answers. Our timekeeper, Annie, thanks to Annie for doing this, will be holding up a card at the 15-second, as candidates have 15 seconds left, so they'll know when their time's almost up. So candidates, please try to listen to her and stick to the cards. She looks nice, but she's really mean and will yell at you if you go over time. Okay, we'll get started with opening statements. We're gonna go in order from left to right for this. The questions will be in reverse order, but we'll start with Ed Cameron. You have 1 minute.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ed Cameron, running for re-election. So I was first elected in 2007, so I used to be a young whippersnapper. Now I'm an old-timer. Appreciate your consideration with one of your 5 votes for this year. When I ran back in 2007, I was interested in the waterfront, saving the waterfront park and creating that. Our schools were in desperate straits, served with Mayor Holliday for a number of years, both on the council and when she was mayor. And more recently, we've focused on issues that I think are important around affordability, the Brown School, making more housing opportunities available for folks, Youth Services Center, which I greatly supported, the West End Fire Center. So we've had a lot going on in the last couple of years. We've got a lot on our plate for the future. There's a lot of federal turmoil, and I want us to remember that we're neighbors and we need to solve our problems together, focusing on the issues, avoiding social media and personalities as much as possible, but forums like this help create that dialogue, so I appreciate you being here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rani Ng, and I'm running for City Councillor at large. First of all, thank you, Eben. Thank you, the Townie. Thank you to the church, and thank you to my husband and son for being here. Everything I do it for you guys. I'm a military spouse, a working mom, and I have 15 plus years of managing budgets larger than the cities. I have a PMP and a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and I know how to do executive communication and how to put a real eye to a contract and negotiations. I think that my fresh perspective, even though I'm the new kid on the block here, can really bring collaboration and hope to the city council. I don't think that collaboration is naive. Large-scale collaboration has delivered world-changing results, such as cures to diseases and other things. So it's not naive. Finally, I'll say that I have been involved in the PTO, Yankee Homecoming, School Council. Today we did the Newburyport Half Marathon. I have taken the time and given the attention to be a part of this community and learn the culture, and I will work hard and continue to do that. Thank you. Thank you. Ooh, heavy. All right.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Hall. I'm currently a member of the school committee. With my 4-year term coming to an end this December, I'm feeling ready to level up my public service and represent all residents of this wonderful city that's been my home for the past 15 years. I'm running for city council because I care deeply about this community, and I have several key priorities that I hope to address. As a city councilor, I will advocate for robust public school funding, clean drinking water, and for timely maintenance of city infrastructure. I will support affordable housing solutions and thoughtful economic development. Each of these issues is meaningful to me, but my campaign is more than just a list of policy ideas. Regardless of the specific policies on the municipal agenda, I'm running for city council to preserve and enrich our vibrant community in a sustainable and fiscally responsible manner. My campaign is built around a philosophy that emphasizes teamwork and idea sharing to build a government that works for every Newburyport resident.
Thank you so much for hosting this event. I'm completing my first term representing my neighbors as the Ward 4 City Councilor. Before that, I served on the Newburyport Human Rights Commission. Professionally, I'm the VP of People and Business Operations at a technology company and have over 20 years of management experience. I also co-chair the board of directors for Point Foundation, the nation's largest LGBTQ+ and ally scholarship organization. I'm running at large because I've learned that good ideas don't stop at ward boundaries. And the issues important to residents in Ward 4, like affordability, safe streets, and responsible infrastructure investments, require citywide solutions. I've worked hard to deliver real results, securing funding for the Lower Atkinson Safety Project, making progress to complete our network of sidewalks, and sponsoring the ADU zoning to encourage more housing production. I hope to bring the same collaborative, problem-solving approach I've used in my first term to all of Newburyport.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Afroz Khan. It has been an honor serving all of you Newburyport folks for the last almost 7.5 years as a city councilor at large. My husband and I moved to Newburyport 20 years ago, and it is here that we really grew our family. We've got 2 girls who are teenagers now, and we both have really given to the community initially just through volunteerism. And then when I chose to run in 2017, as I was asked by a resident, it really did help me understand elevating volunteerism to another level, which really meant connecting with every resident. Serving as at-large, which is what I did in 2017, meant that I went to every door and heard from everyone. So for me, it's all about what local government can do to keep folks like you engaged, be transparent, and help come together to make the solutions that are best for our city. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heather Shand, and I have came to Newburyport after my niece was born because I wanted to watch her grow up, and she graduated from Newburyport High School and will be graduating from college next spring, so mission accomplished. I have been on council these last almost 8 years now with Councillor Khan, and I came in wanting to deal with infrastructure, streets and sidewalks, and affordable housing, and we have succeeded in making the Brown School deeply affordable senior housing. We passed the MBTA communities zoning requirements. That's what the council can do. We can make zoning appropriate for the city and deal with our affordable housing issues. As an engineer at GE Aerospace, I absolutely 100% agree that we need to make sure that our infrastructure is improved and maintained, streets, sidewalks, water, and sewer. So I hope that my last 8 years have been good ones for the city, and I hope the city will continue to letting me to serve for the next 2. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mark Wright. I grew up in South Africa, in case you're wondering. I've been in Newburyport for more than 30 years now. I've lived in 3 of the 6 wards, so I'm very familiar with all of the issues that we're all facing. I served on the school committee for 4, 3 of which were as vice chair. I'm also a past president of the Newburyport Education Foundation, so I understand the needs on the school side. My wife and I have 3 grown children. Many of you will get to the point where my children can't afford to live in Newburyport. So affordability is a big consideration for me, for other families that would like to keep their multi-generational living here. I've also been in the financial services business, worked for 2 local banks for over 20 years right here in Newburyport.
You can hang on to that, Mark. Okay. All right, thanks, guys. The first question, which will go to Mark first, and then Heather will answer, and we'll go around in that order. Where would the maintenance of our water and sewer system and our drinking water quality rank on your list of priorities?
So I think everyone will agree that drinkable water is a very important thing to have. It's been a very difficult thing to prioritize because there's been multiple studies, some of which have been competing on priorities. So I'm very pleased that there's now a task force that's looking at trying to really determine where to spend the money. It's not something that Newburyport can do on its own. So we're going to need to have good plans in place. We're going to need state and federal funding in order to make all of those competing priorities on the waterfront, on the water service side come together.
So I would say that the number one thing that a community is local government does for a community is making sure that we have clean drinking water. That's top priority. I agree with Councillor Wright here. It can't be done just by us. The ratepayers, even with our water rates, will not be able to handle the amount of infrastructure improvements we're going to need. So we are going to need state and federal funds. I think what we can do right now is make sure that we have the designs in place so that by the time we can start getting federal infrastructure funds again, we'll have shovel-ready projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so that ranks really high for me. I think we all take it for granted that we have clean drinking water. More importantly, though, we have been learning, and we knew 2019, 2020, there was a time and bond report that actually identified a lot of the issues that we're really talking through. That report, while at the time provided details on each different types of solutions, it's really taking that and trying to navigate on what's important, what could be done, meaning like the quickest, and a lot of it is other communities involved that we have to work with. So the effort of the ad hoc that I'm part of is really making good progress to really elevate the conversation, let every resident know exactly what it means. Because when we want to talk about the artichoke or the Indian river, the Indian dams, or things that we need to put in place in the infrastructure, it's important that everyone follows along with us as we're trying to learn about these, what the costs are, and what it takes to getting the solutions we need.
It's no surprise, I also would put water and sewer infrastructure near the top of our list of priorities. For a community like Newburyport that has aging infrastructure, it's kind of something that we're always working on. It's not something that we've just been, holding off on to focus in another year. As you heard, there have been efforts underway to study and evaluate the different approaches that we should take. I do think we should have a transparent public process so that members of the community can trust that we have a solid plan, that we're doing the right thing responsibly in terms of what will end up, costing taxpayers in terms of rate increases potentially, and we should bring the whole community along in that process. I think clean drinking water is something that should never be made into a political football. And I do think that if I'm elected back to the city council, it's something that I'll really focus on doing the hard work to make sure that we have a committed roadmap. We know what we're doing, how we're going to pay for it, and we're ready to get started.
So this is my number one priority, so thank you for asking. I attended the storm surge meeting back in 2021, and maybe some of you were there, where the city engineer, John Eric White, presented the various vulnerabilities to our system. It's vulnerable to both drought and potential flooding. There are parts that are not available anymore if something were to break down. There's no redundancy in the system. All these things are very concerning. And so I'm really pleased to see the work that's happening right now with the ad hoc that has some very long name, water infrastructure prioritization, something like that. And those are public meetings, which is wonderful because I've been able to attend, and they are working on a plan. I'm really pleased to see the collaboration that's happening with also West Newbury and Newbury affected by this, and we should be seeing a plan by December. So thank you.
To me, water isn't just a line item, it's a lifeline. So to me, this would be the top priority, even over affordable housing. I know that's a hot take, but if we don't have clean water and infrastructure, we don't have much. So we're gonna have to use federal grants and regional partnerships to get there. Along with looking at our infrastructure, we also have to look at our cyber resiliency when it comes to all of our water, utilities, etc. In 2021, a town in Massachusetts, Littleton, had a cyber attack, and there was a foreign entity in their government's, in their system for months without detection. So that's another thing that we need to look at, along with just them staying feasible and usable for our constituents.
Thank you. Also, a top priority for me, it is one of the basic things that city government, municipal government, town government in Massachusetts provides for its citizens. A lot of communities more rural depend on well water, but we don't. Our public water system has been, we've collaborated with West Newbury over time. I've been a part of some of the bigger infrastructure projects that we did with the water treatment plant back in 2009, 2010, and also the treatment plant, the sewer plant on Water Street back in 2011, 2012. There were some things that, lessons from that. We should have done more around odor for that sewer plant back then. We realized that a couple of years later. So the ad hoc that Councillor Khan and Councillor Preston proposed, I think has been great because the council is getting up to speed. There's new technology. We need to deal with PFAS, and we need to be prepared to be ready to hit the ground. As Councillor Shan said, we need federal partnership and state partnership on this because the ratepayers are definitely going to have to pay for quite a bit of it, but we need to be ready for those other resources to help us cover the costs for it.
Thank you. With federal funding and resources in a precarious position here in Massachusetts, what can Newburyport do to insulate itself from reliance on the federal government and ensure that essential programs continue to receive funding?
I would get that question, thanks. Federal funding, we all know, is going to be tough for the next few years. So I think from the Newburyport standpoint, we need to look at making sure that we are looking at developing what we can here, making sure that we have businesses coming into the industrial park, increasing affordable housing. The Kmart project will bring in more funds. Those are the kind of things that we can do internally to make sure that we can bring in more funding than just what we'll be relying on from the feds. It is going to be a tough one. I think for the next few years, we need to make sure that we're just being as efficient as we can with our own budgets and then making sure that we're growing what we can in our community. So between the affordable housing opportunities and anything we can do from an economic development standpoint, the business park is my suggestion.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I'm also part of the board for the Massachusetts Municipal Association, which is kind of an association for anyone who's elected in local government. And they meet and have different ways for everyone to gather to hear from local elected. One of the main things that everyone's been talking about, since this is forefront on everyone's mind, is really being able to leverage amongst the state what we can. And one of the things that was passed many years ago was the Fair Share Act, where we were able to get a little bit more funds from the state level. And a lot of it's been now discussing and navigating how to use some of those funds. And they are looking really promising, and they've been earmarked schools and infrastructure. So one of the things that I, in my role as a city councilor, really do feel like relationships matter. And that is what I tend to do in my time, is being on the board of the MMCA, which is the councilor's portion of the MMA, but also the policy committees, and making sure that we're at the table, Newburyport, and we're able to leverage or talk to our other communities on how we could work together.
Thank you for this question. It's something we're all grappling with across the state right now and in the country in a lot of different ways. I think about the areas where we're in control. So not all of our funding comes from federal and state grants. Some of those things that we have within our budget that we can control would allow us to continue to make improvements locally. It's not going to help us with things like in the previous question, large infrastructure investments. But what we can do is plan and have a really shovel-ready approach, so that hopefully when those funds open up again, we're ready and poised to put them into action. And I think we really have to partner with our state leaders to make sure that if there's anything that we can do to replace some of those missing funds through state money, that we work with them and make our needs known very clearly. I think we've weathered these types of storms before as a community, and I think through careful, thoughtful prioritization, we can do that again.
That collaboration is going to be key. Collaboration among communities, among states. There's some good work going on together to make recommendations. Doing that. This has applications across education and finance as well. So I think that's our best bet, is a kind of stronger together approach. At a recent council meeting, the city grant writer was talking about how anytime we apply for a grant, there's always questions about who are you working with, and that's key, working with others in the region to try to get things done.
Thank you. I think it's a multi-pronged approach for us to deal with this difficult time. I think the three items that we need to focus on are fiscal forecasting and modeling, and when we're doing our budgets, to model contingency plans if we're not going to get additional funding. We're also going to need to do coalition building, and there's power in numbers if we can work with other communities, use the resources that Councillor Khan mentioned, and then finally expanding the tax base through affordable housing and letting more businesses come here and thrive, because that eases the burden on the taxpayers. None of the things will come early. We don't have control easily. We don't have control on everything, but I think if we can do those three things together, fiscal forecasting and being responsible with multiple contingency plans, coalition building so that there's power in numbers, and finally expanding the tax base, we can try to insulate and protect ourselves.
Thank you. This is an existential. Of the audience, John Giordano, recently wrote an article about why what's happening at the federal level is the most important local issue, and unfortunately I agree. We need to be protesting at every level with anyone we can, going to No Kings rallies, because we may be able to weather this for the next couple of years, but our country is in deep despair right now, and the federal government is backing out many things, including education infrastructure. If there are cuts to special education funding, that's going to have a huge impact on school districts across this nation. I'm very glad that we have committed school committee members who are running for city council. Brian Callahan will be the Ward 3 councilor, and Sarah Hall may be an at-large councilor. That's going to help us keep those budgets tight. We need to batten down the hatches, get ready, work with our federal partners, and I do agree that we need to increase our economic development and hire somebody to be the coordinator, the focus, who can bring businesses in and support businesses, because we need that activity.
Thank you. In the absence of federal funding, we'll need to get as much additional state funding as we can to try and close the gap. Chapter 70, if you've been in a school committee meeting, you've heard it 1,000 times. It doesn't really work well for Newburyport. It's something that the state could certainly change if they chose to, with the additional revenue that they have. Locally, everything ends with us. So we need to be careful on how we budget. We need to be strategic in how we do development, so that it has the largest impact on the revenue with the smallest impact to our communities. So that's something that hopefully, if I was to be re-elected, I can be a strong advocate for keeping our budgets where they need to be.
The condition of sidewalks is often cited by residents as a pressing infrastructure issue. Acknowledging that budget and resources aren't endless, can the city be doing more to address sidewalk repairs?
Yes, I think we all know the conditions of our sidewalks. We are an amazing walkable city, and many people are traversing around. Most times we find ourselves on the streets because of the conditions, depending on brick or the material. In terms of the funding for it, I was on the council when we first actually had the $2 million a year bond go through, and that we asked for under Mayor Holliday. And that was a little foundational at the time. And I remember we had a good debate about it, because we really needed to be ahead of being able to make these repairs. If we just relied on what we were getting from our meals tax and from the state, it wasn't enough to keep ahead of it. I think we do need to be a little bit more creative on the funding. I think the costs are really important to understand. And I think we started that dialogue a little bit through some ordinances that looked at what we were defining and mandating in certain areas. And I think it's worth revisiting that, looking at different materials, possibly mixed materials, but we do need to get creative on addressing that issue. Thanks.
So when I talk about bringing a ward perspective to at-large, this is one where I think I have a little bit of a unique approach, which is the sidewalks issue is not the same across the city. There are a lot of parts of the wards over there that don't have sidewalks at all. And so I think I agree the city, should be continuing to increase its investment in this area so that we can complete those sidewalks, so that people can get around safely, connecting parts of our city to our downtown, so that those residents feel like they're included and connected to all of the activity that we enjoy, in this part of the city. So I think there's certainly a need for investment, but also taking a holistic approach so that we make sure that we're not thinking about just the downtown or just certain neighborhoods. I also want to make sure that as we continue to do this work, we incorporate safety. How can we optimize crosswalks? How can we look at areas where curbs can be adjusted to make it safer for people crossing, so that it's narrower for the pedestrian? I have lots of thoughts on this. Thank you.
So in terms of the funding model, I think that the $2 million a year seems to be moving us forward effectively. And then the question is, who gets to be next, right? How do we decide that? And we have the beta study from a few years back, which is a helpful way to prioritize. I appreciate the work that ward councillors do to advocate for specific projects. We also have a wonderful organization in town called Livable Streets. I've been on a couple of their sidewalk walking audits. They do bike audits as well. And just having that advocacy from neighborhoods and specific wards, I think helps us decide what needs to be done in a way that's equitable across the city.
So I've fallen, my kids fallen. I've done the bike bus now and ridden a bike since the first time since middle school. And I know that the city has done a lot and there's a plan, and I'm not here to choose sides if it's enough or not, but if enough residents are talking about it, then we need to revisit the plan. So a few things we can do are the complete streets that a few towns in Massachusetts take advantage of, and we can use Chapter 90 to prioritize high injury corridors. when I was living in Newport, they had a huge lawsuit because somebody got hurt. So there's a lot of innovative solutions in the ways that we can do brick sidewalks or regular sidewalks when we're doing these changes, so that we're not up with like a very costly penalty or lawsuit. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can see what Cambridge is doing, what Boston is doing, what Newport is doing, what Old Town Alexandria is doing. And finally, we should be considering a complete street. Every time we're looking at a street, let's look at the trees, the bike shares, and the sidewalks.
Thank you. So yes, we need to be doing a better job both on streets and sidewalks. And with the question focused on sidewalks, I think we need to acknowledge that we can do a good job. Councillor Harman, I think, deserves a lot of credit for finishing the connectivity on Mosley Ave all the way down to the roundabout. That was a long time coming. I used to be the Ward 4 councillor, and people complained about that back then, and you did it. I didn't, but again, with the administration and the council made that happen. Noble Street was a long time coming. That finally happened. We've got work to do on Kent Street and Merrimack. The idea, and it is on our CIP, it's a little bit further down the road, so to speak, to connect Hill Street, so to connect wards 5 and 6 with some sort of bike and pedestrian corridor along Hill Street to make it easier for those of us living here to get out there and those living out there to get in here. And just look at the rail trail. That took many mayors to make that happen, but we've got an incredible system, and I think just building on all those things can make it better for walkers.
Thank you. So originally, the funding was specifically for streets. It morphed into streets and sidewalks, which I think was a good idea, because once you're touching a street to redo the street, it makes sense to do the sidewalks. But it's incrementally added to the cost of doing a specific street. Federal Street, for example, would be $1 million plus expenditure to do the streets and the sidewalks. So it gives you some kind of idea as to the scale of what the city is trying to accomplish. So I think we were fortunate with the ARPA funding that we received, because we used a lot of the ARPA funding to fund the initial years of the streets and sidewalk plan. So we still have a bond that's out there for considerably, almost the original amount. I don't think we've bonded anything under that bond at this time. So that would be something that we could look to add additional money to get more things covered in regards to streets and sidewalks.
So yes, as a former Ward 3 councillor, I felt like we'd won the lottery a few times when some of our streets got repaved and sidewalks got done. Boardman Street came out of the blue, and it was wonderful. Yes, it would be great if we could get more money. I think folks also should remember that when we did the $2 million bond, we said it would be $2 million a year, but it was also dependent on also getting possible grants. That's how we got the Safe Routes to School. That's how Ward 3 started off when Safe Routes to School came through. We had $1.7 million from the state and feds, which was also a great opportunity. Folks should also remember that our meals taxes, 50% of our meals taxes go to our streets and sidewalks plan. So when you want to go eat out in Newburyport, because your meals taxes are going to your streets and sidewalks.
Thank you. The shoe store, Hyman's Pennyworths, is closing at the end of the year. What type of business would you like to see in that space, and how would that address a city need?
Wildcard question. First of all, I want to say I really appreciate Hyman's. I'm not a frequent shopper, but every year I donate time and gifts to the rec center's Adopt a Family Christmas program. And so they offer a 20% discount, and that's always been so meaningful. And it's sad to lose a business that has, such deep roots in the community. So I think what I would say is a business that can thrive and contribute to our tax base, but also one that will really be deeply rooted in Newburyport. My husband has a store that he opened recently in Haverhill, and it's just been really lovely to get a sense of their downtown business community, their city councilors and mayor coming in and supporting them and cheering them on. And so I think we should encourage our more businesses, but also embrace and support them.
I'm also sad to see that store go. As far as what should replace it, I think something that it's hard for me to say what would be the right thing, but I do think that economic development is something that we should be addressing maybe a little bit more forcefully than we have, so that we can be not relying so heavily on our residents for the tax base. And the industrial park is an area where we could develop more, and now we have this space at Hyman's, and whatever wants to come in and contribute to our community and to our tax base is something that I would support.
I think I would like to see, again, it's sad to see a staple in a community have to leave the area, but times are changing and big box retail stores just aren't cutting it anymore. People don't go there, they shop online. What I'd love to see in that place, especially with the Kmart community Kmart thing happening, is a co-working space, something that's like mixed use. So like coffee shop where you can like sit there and hang out, or like you can like rent the space for after hours, have your kid's birthday party, but something that is adding to our economic development and additionally allowing there to be a space for people to hang out, do homework, get tutoring, or anything like that. Thank you.
When I saw the ad that morning in the Daily News, that was the first time I'd heard of it. I let out a very loud groan, because that's one of the two places where I buy clothes. I'm not wearing anything tonight. That and Richdale, because I'm kind of cheap. But you know, it's not up for government to decide what should be in there. I mean, that's really up to the market and customers. But again, I go back to we had an economic development plan in 2023, and the first recommendation was to hire an economic development. Call them a director, call them a coordinator, call them whatever you want, but somebody who's going to have the local pulse, so to speak, on what businesses are doing well, what landlords are charging for commercial rents. And we need to make it economically viable. Somebody on Facebook this morning said something about putting a club or a bar there. I love Giuseppe's. It's the best restaurant in Ward 5. But other dining opportunities there besides Chipotle and the fast food. There's been a lot of flux in that. The old Verizon store, there was a few different places. I think Dunkin' Donuts is gone. Abe's does have the best bagels, not that new place. But yeah, I think we should have somebody that can coordinate.
Thank you. The council was presented with some zoning opportunities for the Port Plaza area in general, setting aside the project that's now under consideration. There's a thought that we should try and replicate downtown Newburyport and create a village experience where people can walk and bike and do that in that area. So I would recommend to my fellow councillors, and if I were to be re-elected, I think that some thoughtful zoning there might be a way to stimulate some mixed-use buildings there. We're very familiar with them in downtown Newburyport. Retail on the first floor, residential in that area. I think they would be a great fit for that area of town moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. That's exactly what I was going to say. We do have a grant where we are going to have the opportunity to do some thoughtful rezoning in that Port Plaza area, where we can make it a village-like, where we can talk about, we can make sure that bikes and sidewalks and mixed use are prioritized. So I would like to see that go through in the next council, and I would personally like to see a shoe store there.
Thank you. I was going to echo exactly what the other councillors said. We actually did spend some money, and our planning director, Director Port, had spent some time initially studying with some other students on what could be done, and really the vision for spaces like that. And that is really something I think that, if I am also reelected, is really getting ourselves ahead of the issues instead of trying to chase the problem and solve it with zoning. I really think that just stepping back in general and looking at across the city, all of our zoning districts, what's the intent? What do we want that vision to look like? And really to move ahead, what pieces does it take to really meet what we think would be best? It is sad to see the store going. It is one of my favorite places as well. But this is a place where we really can get together and make these initiatives push them out.
In a somewhat similar vein, over the past few years, vacant downtown stores are increasingly being rented by realtors, construction showrooms, and wealth management firms. These stores are of a very different nature than the retail offerings that used to occupy those spaces. Do you think this indicates a change in our town's character? And if so, what are your thoughts about that change?
Yeah, I would have to assume that it was. It makes Lexington, where pretty much everything downtown is banks and realtors, and I'm for county. As I saw the transition of anymore. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about that later on, but this is certainly an issue that taking notes when the rest of you all talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I do think that those types of establishments coming into where we have other small businesses is not great for the character of our city, and it's not great for tourism, which is a huge part of our retail revenue that comes in. So things that we can do from City Council is that we can work with the Chamber of Commerce so that we can help new small businesses come in, and ones that are already there. We can have grants where we help them with incentives and technical support. We can do strategic brand marketing across the city for things like Yankee Homecoming and in the shoulder season, so that those type of businesses can thrive when they're here with us. And we can make it a bit easier for smaller businesses to do work here through permitting and licensing, and improve the parking and signage.
Thank you. Yeah, I will go back again to needing economic development capacity, and a lot of communities have this, places smaller than us and certainly places that are larger than us. So somebody that is going to be the point person to support the chamber, make sure that there's a conduit between the administration and local businesses, and involve the council as well. I will say the definition of monopoly, you could look at downtown Newburyport, New England Development, Stephen Karp, they own 40% of downtown. I'm all for working cooperatively with them on Waterfront West if they want to go that route. I think that could have a big benefit for the city and for citizens, could broaden our tax base as well. But there is no doubt that the rents for commercial spaces with triple net leases are very high. And I think we should use any opportunity to talk to them about making sure that Newburyport downtown works not just for bankers and wealth managers and realtors, but also works for the citizens and also for the tourists that come here, and we really depend on them. And anything we can do to support the downtown businesses there is something we need to pursue.
Thank you. I don't have much to add. For those of you who know, my wife is a realtor and has offices downtown. But it's very hard to open a small business and to have a small business succeed. And anything we can do to help, we should be looking to try and assist them. I think we made a really good faith effort with outside dining. I think it's transformed downtown Newburyport. I'd be in support of continuing to do that. And if there are other opportunities that arise for some of our smaller businesses that aren't part of the New England Development group, we should be looking to see what we can do to help make them be successful and have sustainable businesses.
Thank you. I agree with my prior two counselors. We do need to have someone in economic development focused on this, collaborating with the city halls, collaborating with the chamber. This is, small businesses are not easy. We hear about it all the time, how they close we watched it during COVID. So anything that we can do to support the local businesses should be a priority for the chamber and for the council as well. I agree with Councillor Cameron here, working with New England Development, who has a 40% share of the rentals downtown. We do need to leverage what we can with the waterfront development to see if there is something that we can do to help some of the local businesses.
Not to repeat everything, I think we got to hear a lot about things from my colleagues here. The one thing I do want to add is there is a lot of information just to be gleaned by talking to those business owners there, the small business owners, the type of places we like to go and shop in, bringing people to the table and really forming some type. And I think there was an economic, I don't know if it's still in place, an ad hoc of other businesses. And I think it was called Economic Development Ad Hoc. But really, I know we talk about having the position there to help push these things along. But even before we do that, because I do know how we all look at new positions, we do have the hat of also looking at the budget of the city. But before we jump into that, it doesn't hurt to maybe do a little focus group conversation to understand what have been the struggles, what has their landlord relationship been like, what are other things we could do in terms of supporting financially through small grants that we even as a city can start even trying to think about that some cities did incorporate. So I think that is a good place to first start. Thank you.
Thank you. I should start, I think, and everybody understands that market dynamics are not within the control of the city council. So, but I will say, I think we can do work to make sure that Newburyport is a place where the people who work in our local businesses should be able to afford to live. And so when you hear the types of businesses that are being talked about here, they're not the types of businesses that are getting hourly wages. And so I think that is a focus for me, is making sure that we keep Newburyport affordable so that staffing is not a concern for any type of business downtown. And when you talk about a focus group, I mentioned my husband has a store in Haverhill. My best friend sitting over there has an antique store across the street that she opened a couple of years ago. So I've been on the journey with her, understanding how to build a business, how to build a brand, and the challenges of being in a town like ours. The last thing I'll say is we have new leadership at the chamber. I've noticed a lot of the work that she's doing to reinvigorate the conversation and provide new opportunities to kind of take a fresh approach to Newburyport to try to attract customers year round.
Thank you. How would you address the concerns of people on fixed incomes who are worried about being taxed out of Newburyport?
The way that we can lower the burden on our residents, since it is the biggest way that the city gets revenue, is we have to expand the tax base. It's the only way that we're going to be able to lower it. And that is through, if we add affordable housing, then we'll have more housing, more taxpayers, and we can lessen the burden on everyone. One way that I think that we can do that is right now you don't need a permit for single family housing. Let's flip it. You need a permit for the single family housing, and you can outright build multifamily housing. I think that would be a great incentive for us to get more affordable and multifamily housing into the city so that the burden's not on us somewhere, along with all of the economic development strategies that we've talked about. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, agree with a lot of what Rani just said. So I think affordability for those on fixed incomes, and I think we're talking about seniors, although there are folks with disabilities that are on a fixed income as well. There's the housing component, and then there's the tax cost component. So in terms of housing, yes, we do need more housing at all levels. The missing middle, and every time that we have a new housing unit, somebody that might have bought one that's even more expensive, they can buy that, but the middle one is something that somebody else could get. So I think having deep affordability like we have at the Brown School, I think that ended up being a tremendous, how that was pulled together was tremendous, because all of those units are affordable and they will be deeply subsidized. Pushing for that at Kmart. If there's other developments, I think Park and Ride is another opportunity. And then, as Rani said, our tax base, if we have more businesses, if we have limited more developments around housing, that helps our overall costs, and that decreases the pressure on the rest of us.
I think we need a strategy that addresses both sides of affordability as far as the city budget goes. We definitely need to increase our revenues. We're constrained by Proposition 2.5 when it comes to that. So the only other way that we can increase our revenues is through new growth, but new growth has to be thoughtful so that we're not adding more taxing our infrastructure more and having to spend more money on water, sewer, other things that go with it. So the industrial park, I think, is an opportunity for a business park. Some rezoning there might be something that would attract more office type buildings there, less manufacturing, more office. And then, you know, we really have to be thoughtful. We have so many competing priorities in the budget. To live within Proposition 2.5 and new growth, we can't have 4 and 5% contracts when we have to live within Proposition 2.5. So we have to be thoughtful on how we engage with our unions in those areas.
So I agree. We need to make sure that we are addressing our affordable housing issues. I think we do need to embrace the idea of having the Kmart project. 212 units would be a benefit for a lot of the people in the community, a benefit for folks who want to move out of a house, folks who are on fixed incomes that can no longer afford their tax base but want to stay in Newburyport. So I think, as Councillor Cameron said, that the missing we need to address. We need to embrace the fact that Haley's is going to be built. The one next to the Newburyport crossings will be built. And then we have thank goodness we have the Brown School coming online within the next 3 or 4 years with the 29% units. As Councillor Wright mentioned, we do need to look at what we can do to increase our tax base. And I do agree that addressing any opportunities we can have in the business park would be a help here.
So to talk about the fixed income folks and the seniors, as we mentioned, the demographics, one of the things too as counselors that we can adopt, and that's in our role, is local options for tax relief programs. And one of the things that we did over the past few years was actually the senior work-off program to be able to have your property taxes reduced depending on the number of hours. But there's also other things and other types of programs. We once as a city looked at 41C1/2, which had an increased number that you could get for your taxes to be. But there are a lot of options locally that we can do that get triggered by the council with the mayor through home rule petitions as well. And this is, again, focusing on a certain group of fixed income folks, and it has a little bit more criteria that the city could actually also define based on number of years of residence, 10 years, 15 years, and also an option to look at the means tested option, meaning how much does one have in acquired wealth already. So these are options that I would really encourage we look at.
Just to pick up where she left off, I would tax exemption programs, expanding our senior work-off program, making sure that everyone is aware of that program and is, if they need it, that they can take advantage of it. Another thing I think about is making sure that residents who are truly in need are aware of and can take advantage of services that are available at the senior center through the other programs that the city hosts through the Council on Aging, transportation, meals, things that really get at survival for people who are really in dire straits if they need it. The last thing I just wanted to mention too is the accessory dwelling unit zoning that I passed along with Councillor Khan, or sponsored along with Councillor Khan, is an option that would allow a senior to downsize, stay in your home, create a small rental unit where you can downsize, and then you can rent the rest of your house, and that's income. So I think there's some creative ways that we can try to address this, but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
So I'll echo what others have said about the need for economic development. We need to grow our tax base because everything will just keep getting more expensive. So that is a practical way to do it through not just residential, but also businesses. One thing that hasn't been mentioned that I think is worth exploring is something called a residential tax exemption, which a number of communities in Massachusetts do. who live here year-round to get a savings, a tax break. That does increase the burden on others who are absent landlords or have second home, seasonal homes. So it's, I just think it's something that's worth exploring, that would be a benefit to people who've lived here year-round, have lived here a long time, the kind of population we've been, talking about how we can address their needs for affordability in our community.
The debate underlying the rec center largely came down to getting the city the resources it needs while also balancing concerns over our rising taxes. In future city projects that might require a tax increase, how will you make sure spending is consistent with value?
Okay, there's a lot to that question. So just in terms of the rec center, the final compromise, which most of the council went along with, was to put it to a vote of the voters. I think everybody felt that the rec center, everyone on the council felt that the rec center was a good idea serving youth, and we have an amazing youth services department that largely exists separate from city funding. But I think we ultimately decided to put it to the voters, and they did approve it overwhelmingly. I think every case, every project's going to have to be done on a case by case. I don't think we want to go to debt exclusion every time or an operating override. So I think it's trying to budget debt within our operating budget, which we could have done. There was definitely a sense that we could have done that, a project of that size, $8 million roughly, and there were some grants that we may be able to use, but I think it's going to have to be on a case by case. Raising people's taxes, even for a short-term debt exclusion, is something I wouldn't want to be doing too often.
Yeah, I think I think debt exclusions should be really thoughtful, and they should have a defined length of time. I think we've done really well with the high school and the Bresnahan and the other things we've done with debt exclusions. I believe the rec center, vote went to the public, and that's what they voted for. So, but I don't think that's a sustainable model, because what it does is it starts to create a structural deficit where we have holes in our budgets, and we're basically every 10 or 15 years we have another project that comes online, and so we continually have debt exclusion money that's out there. It never gets retired. So it's like having a 30-year mortgage and paying 90 years for your 30-year mortgage.
I agree with Councillor Cameron on this one. I would not do this periodically. I think the rec center was well thought out. It was well vetted. We have a budget, and it sounds like we're probably going to be right within that budget. I can't see any other type of projects like this. Would just have to be well designed and make sure that I can't see us going out for debt exclusions every time. To what Councillor Wright just said, you can't keep putting these kind of votes to the taxpayers. We need to stay within what our operating budget can be right now.
So the question of value versus priority versus spend, that's critical across the board. I think with youth services in particular, that was years and years of trying to get something done. And RYS. In terms of anything else we're looking at, we learned so much during that process. What I thought would have been a slam dunk was not a slam dunk. So what does that mean? We brush up, get up, and move on to the next thing? I don't think so. I think we have to look back and see where did we fail, and maybe not being able to move that further along when I think it should have been done 4 years ago. And when we look at that and see what we learned, what was not there, to get everyone else along with us, some of the counselors, then that really makes us dig deep on what's the information we need to do. What are we as the bar on to compare projects against? We have a master plan, we have other types of visionary documents, but we really need to be a little bit better in getting everyone else to come along with all these projects.
I supported the rec center because the value that I saw was not so much about pickleball in a gym, but about the academic enrichment and social emotional support that the programs they provide to kids in our community that are most in need, a safety net and a safe space for kids who need it most. And this was actually, I don't consider it a failure. This was a compromise. It's not how I wanted to go about funding the rec center when we started this conversation when I joined the council. And to be clear, it's something that inspired me to join the council in the first place to get this done. And I'm really proud that we did. I worked through this with my colleagues, with the mayor, and where we landed was a debt exclusion. Like I said, it wasn't my first choice, but it was the pathway to get the job done. In the future, I guess the voters told us in this process that I think they agreed with me that the value and the cost were balanced. 61% of the voters approved it. In the future, I can't say how I'll weigh in on something without knowing the details. I'll do my homework, I'll listen to residents, and work to make the best decision that I can.
I agree with Councillor Khan that there were really important lessons learned from this process with the rec center. I do think that a debt exclusion should be a last resort, and in this case, it was the last resort to get the rec center built. I started advocating for that project back when my son was in 6th grade and just loved being a part of youth service programming. And he just started college. So he won't have the benefit of it, but I see how important it is. And it's unfortunate that there did not appear to be another way to get it done. I think moving forward, we should be trying to be careful about how we prioritize and budget within our means, especially where things are tight right now. There's a new plan just this past year with the CIP, Capital Improvement Plan. There's a ranking system which allows us to be a little more objective about how we prioritize things, which could help.
The debate underlying the rec center largely came down to getting the city a resource it needed while also balancing concerns over our rising taxes. In future city projects that may require a tax increase, how will you make sure spending is consistent with value?
So first, I think that the spending was consistent with value because the voters came out and they voted for it. And so we listened to the constituents there. I know that this was a long battle that the city had gone through for many, many years. I do think it was a fiscally responsible decision to take advantage of the quote that we had before it expired, because when those things came in, we were in a very different administration and economic situation. Of course, going forward, now we know, because how things have changed in the United States, that we need to be more careful. We need to be a little bit more conservative in our spending. So we'll change that approach. I also think that, this will be a city-owned building. We can constantly look if usage is low. We can move other things there. We can move things around. So I don't think, we should look at creative solutions on how we can use all of our public owned spaces. Thank you.
It's Marks. Are you in favor of the Kmart housing development as it's currently proposed? And for context, it calls for 212 new rental units.
So that's the challenge with 40Bs, friendly or otherwise. It's a lot of responsibility that is placed on the ZBA to negotiate as best a deal that they can in regard to what the city has to bring towards the deal. As has been mentioned before, we have to get a balance between gaining the affordable units but not burdening the city, and so. It's a difficult process. My hat's off to the ZBA for representing the city in the negotiations. I think the pendulum, I think, has to shift a little more towards the city and a little further away from the developer for it to be considered a successful project for us.
So I do think we need the 212 units. And I mean that in the sense that we are going to get 25% affordable out of this. And that means all 212 units will be applicable to our safe harbor status. That means that from now on, at least for the foreseeable future, we will not have any more 40Bs coming into the community. And keep in mind that we will also have the Brown School and the other Haley's project at the Newburyport Crossing coming on board. So we will be in safe harbor status for a while. But when the council was passing its Kmart overlay, the one reason that we passed that overlay 11-0 was because it was going to give us safe harbor status, which means that no more 40Bs can come in. And I think for any more zoning that we do, once we're in safe harbor, it will be a thoughtful design addressing needs of the community, traffic, bicycles, safety, the whole bit. But yes, I support the 212 units at Kmart.
Thank you. Yes, I'm in support too. I also want to kind of back up a little bit and give everyone an idea of what's the responsibilities we have here. The development agreement was something that the mayor can do and did, and that is not for, as in terms of us councilors. You know, many of us were brought into some of those conversations, and there was, as much as there could be, some understanding and dialogue with a few councilors on the project. What I think now that has to happen, as you heard from everyone else, it was a tough situation that we were in, especially not being in that safe harbor status. We were susceptible to something like this. We don't own that property, Kaplan does. So in terms of making it the best for the city, that is where our local controls are in place because of the friendly portion. And I have complete faith in the folks that the mayor appoints and that we approve are doing the right conversations, asking the right questions, getting the right studies there. So I am here to assure you the process is being followed as best as it can.
So the end of the question is, as it's currently proposed. So no, I don't support the Kmart project as it's currently proposed because we're still negotiating. And I think we can improve this project through the process that's taking place with traffic safety on the street. I think we can improve. What we can't do is dictate how many units go into that building. So I think on that topic, I 100% support the project because context matters. We are in a housing crisis nationally and locally. We have 300 rental units over the last 10 years. So in one fell swoop, being able to replace 212 units just to help us catch up to where we were 10 years ago is a big step forward toward addressing a housing crisis here locally. And as my colleagues have said, it allows us a better negotiation with things like Waterfront West and other developments that we might have coming down the pike. So last thing I'll say too is I believe this could be the first step toward really seeing in real life what a reimagined corridor could be down in that area with mixed use. Thank you.
This project has lots of potential, and the 212 units is not of particular concern to me, and as others have said, it's not within our control. I have been attending the ZBA meetings, and my concerns are more around the traffic issues, parking, stormwater runoff is a concern, accessibility for pedestrians and bikes along the Low Street corridor and also within the plaza itself. At the last meeting, the developer or somebody representing the developer suggested that people living within Port Plaza, as it will be called, could access shops by walking up Low Street to the corner and down Story Ave, and that they wouldn't be putting in sidewalks within the plaza. Also, limited funds being offered for crosswalk or a traffic light. Those things need to be addressed in the remaining time.
Thank you. I do support the Port Plaza. I think that more housing is wonderful and that we need it. My concern is one, it's still negotiation, so we have to stay engaged and involved in that to ensure that there is community-oriented space in there and that there is, EV and stormwater best practices are being done. But the biggest thing is, I have heard from you guys, there's concerns. People want to know. They're scared about traffic. They want to know what it's going to look like. So we need to do a really good job of communicating what's going on, where are the times that you can get involved, what we have control over and what we don't. So my biggest concern is keeping the community informed and abreast on what's going on.
Thank you. To answer the question, do I support it? I support the broad parameters of it. To me, 212 units is not a huge amount. If it was 500, yes, that would be too much. If it's 400, yes, that would be too much. That's going to bring in $600,000 to $700,000 in additional property taxes over what's coming in on Kmart. Traffic is already a nightmare twice a day during the week, and we need to use this as an opportunity to improve that, and also pedestrian and bicyclists. I would also say buses. If we have a village there, and we've got a village at the MBTA, and there's more created downtown, Waterfront West, we should be tapping into these developers to get a shuttle that's going to loop around the city, and we can all leave our cars home and go to Market Basket or Shaw's or wherever we're going and get around easier. So I see it as an opportunity. And also, I'm not afraid of children moving into Newburyport. I think we should encourage that. This is a great place to raise a family, and our schools have the capacity to take on a few additional students every year. So I think it's going to be a good thing for Newburyport.
It's actually a perfect segue to my next question, which is, with all the planned new development in town, including new units in the Brown School, Haley's ice cream location, and Kmart, do you foresee any strain on the school system? If so, what can be done to address it?
Well, the Brown School is going to have senior affordable, so I'm not worried about students coming from there. We'll start with that. I don't think we're going to have the strain that people think we're going to have. I think with 212 units at Kmart, we'll see some families coming in, but right now, I think our schools we have lots of people choice again. So I think people coming into Newburyport right now with children are just trying to come in to get into our schools. I think the schools will, like when we said that 212 units at Kmart, we'll be getting an additional $600,000. I mean, I think our schools can support this. We have a great school system. The classes are right-sized. I don't think a few more students is going to be a problem. If it gets to be that way, then we have to relook at our choice.
That comes up a lot, that question. There's this concept that as we get these multifamily developments, that it means that we are going to see a rise on different costs associated with the schools and infrastructure. And I think the important thing to keep in mind is the housing production plan that was done recently, and I think it was 2024 for the next 5 years, or 2025 till 2030, has some interesting demographics in terms of what the age groups are and what percentages. If you look at that and map it against the type of growth we've been seeing in development, like Boston Crossing is a great example, which has multiple units too from the two large buildings there, you don't really see the type of influx, because as kids are coming in, kids are graduating out, and other communities have actually invested in studies to look at this, because a lot of people bring it up to the point that they've went and looked at data to see what the actual results looked like in past events. So I just want to say and assure people that this is not going to do the strain that we've said. Sorry, my time's expired.
It's okay, I'll keep it short and give you your time back. I think, it's unfortunate because this often comes up. I'm not accusing anyone in this room or the moderator, but there is a concept of NIMBYism around new development like this. And the two arguments that you often hear the most are it's going to crush the school system and our water supply can't handle it. And so we're hearing some of those arguments. We do have, as we talked about, work that we need to do on our water supply. So I'm not saying that's not real. But no, I think the numbers don't add up. They don't show that this is going to put additional strain on our schools. We can handle it. One of the things that we often talk about on council as we do this zoning work is that, we zone for these multifamily developments. We have an opportunity to observe and understand its impact before we go to the next thing. And so I think, as Councillor Khan pointed out, 1 and 3 Boston Way did not crush us. And so we have some confidence going forward that we can handle this.
So we've had a number of new developments over recent years, and despite that, enrollment in the schools has actually been quite flat. As Councillor Khan said, we do have kids graduating out. We need new families coming in. So I do not see this as a concern. I actually did see a projection based on the number of units at Port Plaza, and it was 40 new students. Which if you spread that across K through 12, and of course younger children as well. That seems something that would be very easy for the school system to absorb. Someone also mentioned the possibility of reducing choice, and that's always an option. I'm a member of the school committee now, and we very carefully project and vote on school choice numbers annually, sometimes more frequently as needed, and that could always be dialed back if necessary.
I would love to see more families come to Newburyport. We came to Newburyport because the school system was so awesome, and it's so easy to be a parent here. I love it. So I think every child, not every child, but so many children, if they could come here and grow up in Newburyport, like that's so special and magical. I'm not concerned about the strain that it would have on city services, as mentioned by the other candidates here. You can limit school choice, right? School choice is we have seats that we can fill. So we offer them up to other communities. We could just not do that and have it filled by our own residents. Additionally, yes, kids are going to leave and kids are going to come in. And I think that, nothing is set in stone. We can always revisit our plans and how we're spending money. And I think that, we should do everything in our capacity to encourage families to move here. Thank you.
Thank you. Agree with Rani that this is a terrific place to raise kids. And I think that opportunity should be for kids at all economic income levels. And I think, again, we've got the capacity, as several of my fellow candidates have said. When I first got elected in 2007, I had lunch with Mayor Byron Matthews a few weeks after I got elected. I didn't really know him, although I had knocked on his door. And I made a comment. I was pretty new to Newburyport. And I said, how do you feel about all us new people moving in? And he said something along the lines of, thank God you did, because for a long time, Newburyport was a place that people left and they didn't come. So a lot of communities are places that people don't want to live there. So we should keep moving forward so it's a place that people want to keep coming to. Part of this is a big reason why I supported the Youth Services Center. Kids need options. They need all sorts of options. Yeah, you can hang out downtown. You can get a job when you're 16 or 14 or whenever, depending on what kind of job it is. But kids need to get off their phones. When they get out of school, they need a place to go. So that's why I supported it.
Well, this is the challenge of going last on a question. I agree with everything that's been said. I think this committee can adjust the spigot when it comes to choice. And there's a lot of capacity that's in our schools that is currently being filled by choice kids coming from other communities. So if there was a large influx, if the experts are wrong, and they're never wrong, then there may be more kids. But I think that the school committee can very easily adjust choice and create more capacity that way.
Thanks. Okay, this is the last question before we get to our Q&A with the audience. Stephen Karp of New England Development is in negotiations with the city about building 220 new condos on Waterfront West. What are your feelings about this project?
Yeah, thank you. When I came on the council, there was an ad hoc on this very project that was formed in 2019 or 2018, and our report came out 2019. So I do want to see us start progressing. I think, again, similarly with what we experienced with Kmart, the difference here is there's no kind of, strongholding the city onto something. The mayor, if they're doing the development agreement, is doing their part. The council then can do our part, which is the zoning. So I think what's really important here is to ensure that we are getting the best from the city perspective. That's not going to actually cost us more money when you look downtown. And that is one place I'm going to highlight where the water and sewer infrastructure, just the piping, just the actual hardware, is a problematic situation. So we really just want to make sure as this is happening that there is going to be fair responsibility of who's going to be covering for being able to take the capacity of what's going to be happening there.
Thank you. I think this is a fantastic new growth opportunity for Newburyport. We talked about the constraints on taxes. We talked about affordability. Like, this is a way to have a big influx of tax revenue from a new development. I also think that it's the kind of thing I imagine 5 or 6 years after it's done, when we drive through that section of town, if we get it done well, it's going to match the character of our downtown, and it's going to complete a stretch that's open today that feels missing, is sort of the way that I hope it goes. I think there's an opportunity to work with the developer on climate resiliency and green space along the rear of the property, along the water, where we know we have vulnerability. We did work on Market Landing Park to raise the levels there, so I hope that we would have an opportunity to work with the developer to do that in this location as well. And the last thing I'll say is I really want to see a boutique hotel there, similar to the Beauport in Gloucester. It's the way that we can provide some support for our businesses, as we were talking about earlier, to have tourists year-round.
Waterfront West was a hot topic back in 2019, the last time I ran for city council, so I'm kind of excited that it's coming back around. At that point, what was being proposed by New England Development was not something that the community was receptive to for a number of reasons. It was too dense, it was too tall, there wasn't enough green space, and it kind of died on the vine. And so I'm excited that it's coming up again and that it has real potential. I know that there's been a work and conversation going on behind the scenes with the city and New England Development, and this is a real opportunity for economic development that's done in a thoughtful way, where we are considering the resiliency concerns. I love the idea of having green spaces that people can share, and making sure that we leverage this opportunity for the city.
I think Waterfront West is a really exciting thing that we get to work on. For me, the biggest concerns are the climate and environmental resiliency that we build into this. So Newburyport is a FEMA designated flood prone community, and we're going to see up to 1.5 feet of sea level rise. So if we can do more green infrastructure, make sure that we have modern stormwater systems, permeable pavement, and coastal restoration as we build that area up, along with sustainable scoring and everything that we do there, or at least try to influence it as much as we can. And then I think we cannot have a sacrificial first level. I think that is absolutely bananas that we're going to plan for it to be sacrificed, because it's going to become the city's problem in the future. So I think those are the things that we would do, but I do support it.
Thank you. Yes, I would support it. I'm somebody, and there's a few of them in the room who've been through this since Mayor Moak, Mayor Holliday, Mayor Reardon. It's been a long battle, but I think this has potential to really be good for Newburyport. Helps our property tax base. It could be mixed use. We don't want too much retail there because we don't want to cannibalize the rest of downtown, but we can deal with parking, traffic. They're going to make enough money on this where there can be mitigation that will be helpful to the city. In open space in Chapter 91, we still are going to get access to the water. An idea that I have had, and I've mentioned this to Mayor Reardon and some of his staff and a couple of my colleagues, is how about a public park on top of a building? If they want a building that's 4 stories, 5 stories high, make it a football field sized green space, put the grass up there. I think that's environmentally a good thing. And if we could have access to it and we can be down there and using it, I think that would be a win-win. And again, around transit, if we have a village downtown at the MBTA and at Kmart, we should be talking to these people about shuttles.
So if everything goes well with Kmart and we attain safe harbor, then we won't have to negotiate with someone that has a huge hammer that they can use against us. So I think that's in our favor when we start to discuss this with New England Development. We should learn lessons from the process that we're going through now with Kmart and think about all the things that we would have liked to have asked to be part of the Kmart project that can be incorporated into our negotiations with New England Development. The economic mitigations have to be significant because there are significant infrastructure work that needs to be done by the city. And you've all heard that we don't really have the funds to do that. So it would be welcome for us to partner with New England Development and have them do their fair share in a win-win situation for them and us.
I think Councillor Wright's got it there. This is going to be an opportunity where we're not going to have the Kmart process hanging over our heads. It's an opportunity for us to work with New England Development. And it's also an opportunity to get developers to absolutely help with our infrastructure. We cannot let that go. The benefits to the city need to be infrastructure all the way, from the water pipe going underneath Market Square Landing. It needs to be part of the development agreement. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think everyone needs to realize this has got to be rezoned, and that's where the council comes into play. So it's an opportunity for the public to come out and see what the process is, and it's an opportunity for us to do our due diligence to make sure that whatever is going to be down there is not going to overwhelm our city, and it would just be a benefit to our downtown businesses.
All right, we're gonna get to our Q&A part of the night. So if you guys want to raise your hands, if you have questions, we'll get to as many as we can, time permitting. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer the question, and I'm going to come around with that Frankenstein microphone thing. And then, no, I can. And then I'd ask you also to address your questions to all the candidates, not anyone in particular, so that they all have an opportunity to answer. So anyone who has a question, just raise your hand.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out and doing this, and thanks for all the hard work you do for the city. You know, I am a creative by nature. I have a lot of ideas. They pop in my head, and I'm so glad there's a publication like the Townie now that can let me share some of them. A couple of ideas I have expressed in the Townie are thinking about the fact that we absolutely need to be working on senior housing. I mean, this is critical for the city, that we have affordability and we take care of our elders. But I think there's an elephant in the room, and that is that we are not attracting young people to Newburyport. So Eben, I think, is an exception in that he is a 30-something who has come back to live in the city. How many people can really do that? Now, on my street, 3 houses have turned over in the last couple of years where young families have come in, but their profiles are very similar. They're all in finance or in tech. They're very nice people. But I think we're limiting the diversity of our city if you have to be of a particular sort of financial status to live here. So one of the ideas I've come up with is, why don't we just think of it as entry level housing and senior housing, and think of this together so that we can bring our young people who want to either come back or plant roots in this city even before they have families, so that we attract young professionals and we can actually support seniors and young people, and maybe even create a barter system where they're in support of each other. We have to think creatively, and so my question to you is, what is your big, bold idea for this city? If you want to tackle that one, please do, but what's your big, bold idea? Because I think everybody has one. Thanks.
Thanks, John. I don't have a big, bold idea like yours. I did read it. I thought it was very interesting, and something that I think, just makes a lot of good common sense around needs of aging folks and younger folks. One specific thing that I would like to see us investigate and explore here is a starter home district, which is not exactly what you're talking about, but and we have limited land, so it would be something that would have to take place over time, but it's where we would zone to allow for smaller lots, to have smaller homes on them that would be, have ADUs by right, and that they would allow for sort of a natural organic development of the type of community that you've envisioned, where young people and old people could live side by side and have opportunities to support and learn from one another. Maybe not big and bold, but city council doesn't really get to do that much big and bold stuff, but zoning is kind of our big lever. So there's some thoughts on that. Oh. Are we going?
Yeah, we'll go. So you answered. Yeah, we'll go, Sarah.
Hey, John, thank you for the question. It also relates to your the video Between the Lines. I saw you on Between the Lines as well. And I really appreciated hearing about the kind of creative artistic community that you entered when you moved here, and thinking about my own kids who are young adults now. What sort of things would they need to be able to live here? We certainly need to be doing a better job of maintaining our stock of rentals, making sure that those aren't getting all turned into short-term rentals, or condos, but are preserved as rentals, where Port Plaza is an opportunity to bring in more rentals. And then there's the connectivity, the transportation that goes along with that, making sure that we have maybe a bus system or biking, and just make the city really user-friendly, in addition to having.
Great question. I know we had a lot of fun talking at Riptide. I have two ideas. One is big and bold. One is just like, whatever. But so the Chamber of Commerce, I'm in their young professionals group that they've made here. So I think one thing we need to do is really amplify and help the Chamber of Commerce with these young professionals. Because I was talking to everybody. People want to live here. They're sick of living with their parents. They want to be able to stay here. They like going out in the city. My big, bold idea is that I have the sticky on my mirror, and it says, "I welcome the wisdom with growing old." And it's manifested in my life in the craziest way. The Democratic City Committee, with the people that I have met there, there's so much wisdom. The senior center has so much awesome stuff that they offer, and all the people. And then the second thing after affordability that they say is loneliness. And that breaks my heart. So what we can do is anytime the PTO or the school needs volunteers, our first stop should be the senior center. Let's make a partnership there.
Thank you, John. Great question. It's good to know how old Eben is now. That's helpful as well. So I want to say something old that's been said, but it's new. Accessory dwelling units, ADUs, Councillor Harman and Councillor Khan worked on that, and it got through Planning and Development Committee. And it's an old idea. I was on the ZBA for a while when I took a couple of years off the council, and you could only do it if it was a relative. You would have to prove it was your relative. And then if your relative moved out, you'd have to rip out the kitchen. You could not do an accessory dwelling unit. So I think over time, that's been a big change in Massachusetts state law, and the city's gone along with that. And I think we should start to emphasize that. Starter homes, yes. Here's my bold idea. How about triple deckers in Newburyport? Find a place, find a developer. How many people have lived in a triple decker ever? All right, I have Worcester, Alston, Dorchester, Jamaica Plain, and that's a place where you can live on one level and rent out the other two, or you can get a bunch of roommates. But I think rentals are really the way to go.
Well, I didn't think I'd be on the bold and the beautiful tonight. Unfortunately, our role on the council is we're not the idea factory, we're the validation factory. So bold ideas have to come from the administration, and then we have to decide whether we can zone those, whether we can fund those. So we get to be, by design, the checks and balances of the bold ideas that come through the administration. But having said that, I'm open to anything. I think accessory dwelling units are the wave of the future. I think that's an opportunity. Had it happened 10 or 15 years ago, where I could have done something like that in the properties that I've owned, I might have looked to do something like that with one of my 3 children.
Agreed. I'm glad that we got the accessory dwelling units zoned. I also think that we don't do bold things, but the things that we can do from zoning's perspective is we can rezone Port Plaza to add the opportunity to have a village down there, to have more housing down there. The more housing we have, the more opportunity people have to come into this community. There'll be more opportunities for seniors who want to downsize to move into buildings that have elevators. There's also the opportunity, and I will keep saying, C&J is going to, once the state and the feds get their act together and figure out who owns what, there's another opportunity there for us to do some development, which would be connecting to an already existing infrastructure for buses. I mean, there's an opportunity to sort of make Port Plaza and CNJ and the whole Story Ave area a better area that would allow more people to move into the community. So I think there's opportunities. It might not be the bold and grand stuff, but I think zoning for more affordable housing is going to give us give folks the opportunity to get into the city, and then we can start moving around from there.
Yeah, great question. And, it may not be bold and beautiful, but as the world turns, let's just move along with it. And the main thing is that I disagree in terms of mayor. I think the councilors, we can actually do something here. And some of the ways to make it happen is to really look and see where, in terms of legislation, but also in terms of resources. And we could always point people, do more with just the communication on what's available. I think the ADUs, while we passed it, and we just like to say, wow, we did that, we should feel great, but there's a lot more that can go with it. A toolkit on how to do it right. Assistance on how to get loans, if you even want to rent, or for those who want to do the ADUs, that's not financially very, we think, oh wow, we'll have a bunch of ADUs, it's expensive. So we need to really think about what other things we can do to start getting more rentals there. And for first-time homeowners, my first home that I got, we're lucky we got a loan because of Amherst credit. I couldn't get it, but Institution for Savings came through for us because of local, and my time's done. So thank you, good question.
More questions?
Thank you. All right, so I asked this question, this topic's coming up in the mayoral race, which is budget growth. For each city councilor, what cuts to the city budget will you tolerate when it comes to approving the budget for the next fiscal year? And what cuts won't you tolerate? And the background to the question is, one of the sources of growth every year for our budget is personnel services and health insurance. So what can we take away to minimize that growth, the promises the mayor wants to make? Thanks.
Thanks.
So there's a study that's happening right now on potential for consolidation in a number of areas, and I'm not sure I'll recall them. Buildings and grounds, IT, thank you for the assist. There's a few different areas, and so I think that's, if there are redundancies in the process, then I would support those cuts if that's deemed to be responsible cost savings. School side of things, our personnel line is rather fluid based on our student population and their needs, and so there's potential for cuts there when staffing is not needed because we don't have the students that have those needs. I could say more, but I think I'm about to run out of time. So.
Thank you for the question. First of all, I wouldn't look into it looking to go into everything looking to make cuts, but of course we can do an organizational assessment and see where there are redundancies and efficiencies to be gained with our budget. However, times are changing. We can reduce our personnel. It's happening all through the industry. There's a lot of value in things that we can leverage with AI. We don't need as many administrative functions anymore, and there are softwares that can do a lot of things that we would need. So if we have to make cuts, that would be the first place that I would look at how we can use these new technological advantages that are coming to our advantage in Newburyport.
I think we're about to have a microphone malfunction here with the duct tape. Great question. That's a hard one. For me, school cuts are non-negotiable, and that's just kind of baked into my political DNA. My dad was a teacher at a junior high school at Rockland, Mass, a little bit south of Boston. And it's very difficult. So I think, as has been said, keeping an eye on the personnel costs, keeping union costs as low as we can. I've approved pretty much every union contract because I think traditionally our city staff, most of whom are excellent employees, really dedicated people. We've got some department heads that you're getting the work of 4 people out of. They've created amazing services to the city. So, but I think it's I think again salaries are better now. So I think it's continuing to maintain that. I think it is looking at healthcare. Because healthcare has been a killer for so many employees across the country, but the schools are a place where I would find it hard to cut anywhere. But I think other departments, if we can attrit a position, as Rani said, AI is an opportunity to clear out some administrative workload.
Thank you. I would highly encourage the administration to bring the committee of all the various labor union negotiating units together to talk about how we can lower the increasingly expensive increases for healthcare. In the private sector, we're all dealing with paying more in premiums and getting less services. And I think that model should be really seriously looked at and get that committee together and make that part of the negotiating process when you're talking about contracts. So not just the dollars and cents of the individual contracts, but I think they should also add the component of negotiating for relief to the taxpayers for what is an excellent health benefit system for the city. And I think that there should be a little bit of a shift to where there are some increases on their side that helps to underwrite that for the taxpayers.
I agree. It is a tough question. I don't think I could ever cut the school's budget. My mother was a first grade teacher for 27 years, so seeing us cut the schools would be tough. I do agree with Sarah, though there are redundancies in our community in the municipal government offices that can be combined. I think the administration is going to have a tough time this year, and I think everyone's looking at what health costs are going to be. So I agree with Councillor Wright. I think there needs to be a discussion amongst all the municipal employees on their health care. To his point, those in the private industry are having to deal with increased health care costs. So there's probably an opportunity there for us to be looking at as well.
Yeah, agree with what everyone said. In terms of coming and finding and streamlining, finding efficiencies where you can, I'm going to just encourage that. And I think a lot of us said that when we came around with this budget time. We knew we were looking for a lean budget. We knew that we needed something to be kind of reflective of what we know up ahead is going to be coming forth in terms of mainly capital projects that are coming in and making sure we're really having enough that we could contribute towards our stabilization fund and be able to fund projects. But at the end of the day, it really does come down to looking at how we've been running things, whether we call it steady state or business as usual, and making sure we're reflecting on the future of where we're going with some of these departments. And the consolidation is one area. But I also want to say there's things that we're not at the table for, like union contracts. So when they come to us as counselors, there is some process already done. So I think the main thing is that we really do need to just get a message across the board on just trying to be efficient and being mindful on what's coming up ahead that we're going to really need to think about funding. Thank you.
Thank you. I would not, just to go on the record, I would not support cutting schools. I will say, though, that in this most recent budget, we did cut, I think, about 14 positions. And the way that we did that was criticized, but I think it's actually quite humane, and it is something that happens in the business world all the time, which is we said, we have open positions that nobody is going to get fired from, and we have a budget shortfall, so we're going to say, hiring freeze is what we kind of call it, or we're going to eliminate those open positions. So, but I think all of us, most of us on council supported that in this most recent budget. So I think there are ways that we can trim in thoughtful, ways like the school informed us that those positions weren't needed. So it wasn't like we were cutting services. But speaking of that, Owen, I mean, my question would be back to you or the whole community, which is, what are you willing to go without? Trash collection, like what are the things that we are willing to sacrifice if cuts are in order?
Okay, more questions.
Thank you. To get back to rentals, we have a shortage of rentals, and about a year or two ago, we had a lot of discussion about short-term rentals, and the council came up with regulations for what would be legal for short-term rentals, and one thing they did was to ban investor-owned short-term rentals. I want to know from the City Council what is happening to monitor that, and also Stephen Karp pretty much changed the makeup of Nantucket so that it's very difficult for people to find housing or rentals there because there are so many short-term rentals. What will you do to make sure that Waterfront West doesn't turn into one big short-term rental property? Thank you.
Thank you, Judy, for the question. I can't tell you what we're doing to monitor it now, as I'm not on the council or with the administration. However, we do need to make sure that we have a registry, and that registry is being checked up on regularly, and that there are fees or penalties for not updating your information. So I think that's something we have to do. I lived in Newport, Rhode Island for about 4 years, and they've done an incredible job of making sure that in the off season, it's still a full community that's very vibrant, and the short-term rentals have not hurt that. So I think this is an opportunity where we can leverage what other tourist cities have done really, really well and not have to reinvent the wheel. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Great question. In terms of what the city would do with New England Development Waterfront West, the mayor did pull together an advisory group of that included 5 councillors and one of the also planning board folks, as well as administration folks from planning. And one of the things in the term sheet, which could then be developed, put into a development agreement, is an insistence that there would be no short-term rentals, assuming they're rentals in those units, whether that's 175 or 200 or whatever it is, or it might be home ownership, but there would be no short-term rentals, and that could be written into that development agreement. In terms of what we're doing right now to regulate, I don't think it's enough. I think it's kind of hard for staff in the planning department who also have other jobs, had other jobs before this increased regulation came about, for them to get us accurate numbers. So that's something that several councillors have talked about and have talked to the administration about. I think we also, besides regulating it, and I was definitely in favor of banning investor-owned, we came up with a compromise that I think worked. I would like to encourage it for people that want to just rent out a room while they're staying at home and bring somebody, a visitor, and that's good income for them.
Thank you. So the council worked really well together, I thought, on compromising with all the varying opinions on short-term rentals. The fact that the investor-owned are phasing out is an important consideration, and then the compromise is that on Plum Island, where it's a seasonal community anyway, that you can have both owner occupied and investment homes there. The conversations that we had amongst ourselves always assumed that there'd be some kind of enforcement that the city would pay for. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. And so there is no real enforcement. There's nobody checking Airbnb to see that everybody that's advertised on Airbnb is registered with the city. So it's a lost opportunity for income for us and the compliance issue. And so the only way that it happens now is when those licenses renew for the people that are doing it, we have an opportunity to look at the bad actors. But I would encourage this administration and the next administration to really spend the money on enforcement.
what Councillor Wright said on enforcement. We were promised at the beginning that any of the funds that we were getting from short-term rentals, part of that would go into purchasing one of the people. We had one group that was able to do some sort of licensing software for us that would be able to monitor this, and that just has not happened. So I agree, Judy, that's something that we need to work on. As far as short-term rentals at New England Development, that was a hard no. I was on the same ad hoc with Councillor Cameron, and when we sat down with the mayor on that one, we do not want that to be the location in town where it's all short-term rentals on the waterfront. We said hard no on that, so that can be part of our zoning.
Thank you, Judy, for the question. Yes, as you heard here, it is actually being phased out. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the end of 2026. So by the time that development happens, they won't be allowed. So want to give you assurance of that. In terms of the monitoring of them, it really is a no-brainer. As you know, councilors, we make the ordinances, and that is a really important part, is the enforcement of them. While we have fines and things like that we could define, the enforcement does come onto the side of the administration. It has been asked multiple times, and I think because we know we make some money, we have fees that we charge for short-term rentals, and we get a little bit of revenue from that. It seemed like there'd be a natural way to pay for it without going and burdening the taxpayers. It's already coming in from the rental tax, and as well, thank you, from money that we get from hotels, as well as from the STRU itself that gets paid to the city. Thanks.
I'll just add, I agree with a lot of what's been said, but one of the reasons why short-term rental units are needed is we don't have a hotel. So I think one of the benefits of Waterfront West is that we have an opportunity, hopefully, to put in a hotel there. So not just to help people with weddings and events and things like that, which is great, and help support businesses, but also to increase our rooms tax. We have additional, perhaps something that we could spend on enforcement if we haven't gotten there by then.
I agree with what others have said. The council put a lot of thoughtful work into a plan for managing short-term rentals in our city, and the enforcement has been lacking. Maybe this is a job for AI. What do you think?
All for it.
Okay. That's to you, right?
Yeah. All right, we're going to do one more question so we can get to closing statements.
Along with all the hard work that it does, the City Council has been known for divisiveness, obstruction, and incivility, including rude and uncourteous behavior. I'm curious how you would describe your style. How do you manage challenging situations? What are your strengths facing criticisms? And where do you get stymied? How do you manage when you've gotten tangled in the fray?
I'm so glad I have an hour to answer this question. And going first sometimes is a good thing. A great question. And yes, is there incivility between the City Council and the mayor? Yes, I would say that's generally true. Certainly some members and the mayor. Is there incivility between city councilors? I think, yes, that's true. Is there incivility between constituents and city councilors? Yes, sometimes that's true. What I try to do is be non-judgmental. People know that I've worked with homeless people for over 30 years. First thing we learned right off the bat is meet people where they're at. Some people are going to be angry. Some people are going to be pissed off. I get accused of being either anemic or Rip Van Cameron and sleeping and slumbering. Hey, I've had a lot of things hurled at me through my work and also being on the council. I think you just got to roll with it. I think listening and trying to remember that, put yourself in that person's shoes. Where are they coming from? Trying to understand and seeing them as a person. And let's focus on issues and not people and personalities and emotions. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that all the candidates for all the elected offices, I think the one thing that you can be assured of is that everybody's doing what they think is in the best interests of Newburyport. I have no question that's everybody's motivation. But we're all human. Things happen. We should all do our best to comport ourselves the way we'd want our children to comport themselves. So that's that would be my advice. Something that I'll take on myself as well to keep that in the forefront. Should you choose to elect me again?
I think one of your questions was, what was my style, our style? And my style is I use my ears and my mouth in the proportion that I was given them. I like to listen. If that's one thing I learned as an engineer, is like you need to sit back and listen, and you make sure you understand where the person's coming from. And I think empathy. You need to understand where other person's coming from and just sort of take that in and just listen. We could all use that a little bit more these days instead of some of the vitriol that we see in the news. But yeah, listening's my thing, and I agree with Councillor Wright. We all come into this job with the best interest of Newburyport's and our constituents in heart.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. My style, now that I'm finishing the 8th year, I always say my first term was cannabis, which really did expose and show a lot of frustration from the community. Definitely took a lot of heat from that one. The second term was COVID, and again, very, very tough time for a lot of our residents, the empathy we needed, and just being there for each other. My third term I define as the term of change of administration. We saw things with Parks Department being kind of consolidated into DPS. There were a lot of things to navigate. So again, the listening and the kind of talking through it. But I do say my fourth term was one of challenge. And so I definitely hear what the question is asking and why, but I think we can be better. And I feel like we have, all of us, we kind of have a track record of how we've been. And I hope people see I really put more than 100% in for every single issue. I try to come at it from an independent perspective as well, as opposed to just going along with others on the council. Thank you.
Thank you for this question. I've been thinking a lot about democracy lately. I spoke at the No Kings rally, which just got my juices flowing on it. And I'm co-sponsoring an ordinance about collaborative government because I think I've seen some things in my first term on council in terms of how we behave with one another, with city staff, with the mayor. I've been shocked by some things. And I think we don't have to tolerate that in Newburyport. We mostly agree with each other here. And so we can treat each other with civility and as representatives of this community, because that's what we are. We're elected to represent you. We're asking you to vote for us to do that work on your behalf. And I think we should behave the way you would expect us to when we're around that table. It gets heated, things are complex. And so that's okay to have a healthy debate and dialogue, but you don't scream at people, you don't scream at each other. And so I think absolutely we have an opportunity to do better. And I hope that gives you a sense of what my style is.
When I was elected to the school committee in 2021, it was a very contentious time in the schools. It was on heels of the pandemic. Emotions were high. There was a lot of tension. And so I came into that knowing that there was division on the school committee, and I ended up stepping up to be the vice chair on day one because that seemed to be the best way to solve that problem. And I like to think that I did. I like to think that I led meetings in a civil and respectful way. I always listen to understand rather than thinking about how I'm going to respond. I like to be inclusive and positive and empathetic, and I look forward to bringing that same positive energy to the City Council.
Thank you. Great question. So first of all, I think that I can bring a fresh perspective to the council. I'm not from here. I don't know the local lore. I don't know who all the wealthy benefactors are. So I think that I can really have an objective look at what's going on. My family is not going to be worried about what your family is saying. I don't have any family here. I can just look at the facts and be a voice for the people. And additionally, if I do get your vote, after 1 or 2 terms, I'll happily hand the torch to the next fresh perspective to come onto the council. I have worked in organizational assessments for 15 years with Fortune 500 companies. And one little tiny trick that does it sounds so cheesy, is if every leader trickles down to assume positive intent, it can truly make a culture shift. Finally, I'll say before I have to leave, I'm going to lead with example. I'm doing this so my son can see what it looks like to be active and volunteering, and so that I will model that behavior for him, because they're watching all the time.
All right, thank you. And it's time for closing statements. We'll start with Councillor Wright.
Thank you. I've enjoyed my time on the City Council. I believe I've made a positive impact. You, the voters, will decide that for us. But I would like to ask you for your vote. I'd like to continue serving the city. I think it's really important that if you want to be a change agent or make things different, the best way to do that is to be personally involved and be at the table to make decisions, reach compromises, move things forward, make the changes that you as our constituents are requesting of us. So you all get 5 votes. I'd hope I can count on one of the 5 votes.
Thank you. So I will say my 8 years as a city councilor have been a great opportunity to learn about this city and just meet so many new people. As a ward councilor and even as an at-large councilor, it's been a joy. I'm an advocate for affordable housing. I'm an advocate for infrastructure improvements. And I will continue that path if you all decide to vote for me as one of your 5 votes, and I hope you will. Thank you.
Yeah, I also just want to thank everyone for coming here tonight too. And I want to say that I don't take it for granted doing this job. I am only here because of you guys and the voters allowing me to serve the city, because it really is service. It's putting everything out there for the public, where I live, who's my family, but it's worth it to me because I truly believe that the work that we do, working together, and we do tend to work and collaborate, do successful things together. And I feel like we can continue doing that. We have a great kind of future in terms of a lot of good work that we have planned for us. And I hope that you guys will see at least what I've been like before on the council and think whether or not if I should continue. I don't take it for granted. And like I said, we have great options. I'm looking here and everyone here is amazing. I hope you will still consider me as one of your 5. And it has truly been an honor representing Newburyport and being a city councilor. Thank you.
To me, local government is about listening, solving problems, and earning the trust of the people you serve. It's where we come together as neighbors, consider different perspectives, and make decisions that reflect upon our shared values and our long-term interests. Over the past 2 years, I've tried to lead with steadiness, transparency, and respect, even when we disagree, because that's what Newburyport deserves. We have big challenges and opportunities ahead in the next few years, setting a course to address our aging infrastructure so it's more resilient, working to shape development that increases the variety of housing options so folks can afford to live, work, retire, or raise a family here, and encouraging economic development to ease the burden on property tax revenue. As I run for an at-large seat, my goal is simple: to bring level-headed, collaborative leadership to the table, because I believe Newburyport is strongest when we work together. I hope to earn your vote for at-large City Council on November 4th.
Thanks to Eben and the FRS for hosting this forum. Thank you to my fellow candidates for participating. I am ready, willing, and eager to serve on the next City Council. Since I'm not an incumbent, I can bring a fresh perspective and voice to the council, something that's sorely needed in order to reset and move forward in a productive way. At the same time, my experience on the school committee has allowed me to learn about municipal budgets, governance, policies, and procedures, and given me the opportunity to connect with many city officials, staff, and residents. I believe that this combination of being a new member while having a public service background strikes a healthy balance that will make me a strong and effective city councilor. There are 5 at-large seats on the council. Please vote for me, Sarah Hall, to sit in one of those seats in the new year. You can learn more about me by going to Sarah Hall NBPTCC on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for coming.
Thank you everyone for coming, taking time out of your Sunday nights for being here. Thanks to all the candidates. Thanks to the Townie. Thanks to everybody that's listening out there. So I don't have decades of family history here. I'm the new kid on the block. This is move number 6 for me and my family. But what I do have is financial acumen, a background in process improvement, and trusted collaboration techniques that can work. And as a part of military family, I've learned to build community wherever we go, to listen first and find common ground, and to lead with respect. When the sailors deploy and the families hold down the home front, we don't ask about political affiliation, background, or what anybody looks like. We just show up for each other, and I will show up for you if I can have one of your 5 votes. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank the Townie and the UU Church for hosting this. You've got 7 great candidates to choose from. I'm hoping I will be one of them. I'm number 7 on the ballot. I've served with 3 mayors, I think 38 city councilors, and shockingly, all of them talk with me, at least as of tonight. We'll see what happens by election day, but I do want to ask for your consideration. This year is going to be different. Next term is going to be different. We're going to have at least 5 new councilors. 5 of the 6 ward councilors are going to be different. We have a very strong chance of being a female majority council for the first time in my lifetime, and I think in history. And I'm quite sure that we're going to have a council that's reflective of Newburyport's diversity. And so I want to be a part of continuing to have us move ahead. We are in difficult times locally because we have very big fiscal challenges at the federal government, and I think I can help us move forward. So appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Round of applause for our candidates. Thanks also to the FRS, to Maeve and Sarah from Port Media for filming, to Annie, our timekeeper, and to you guys for coming out, asking questions. And yeah, thanks to our candidates again. November 4th is the election. Remember to vote.